All right, welcome back. So here we are. We're in the first module or first lesson of the course, the COP2360 Programming in C#. Now, as I noted in the welcome, this is a pretty brief module. We're just talking about the history of C#, knowing what it's gone through, where to come from. So, we'll talk about that here in a little bit. But I want to touch base on, here's the course learning outcomes that we're going to deal with in this module. Historical evolution of C and C#. And you're going to get used to some form of Visual Studio IDE, whether it's visualstudio.net or Visual Studio Code. You're going to install one of those along with GitHub. So here's the video where it's going as soon as I get done recording it. Lectures that we've got in this module. This is resources to help you through setting up your GitHub and setting up Visual Studio. Now, if you're using visualstudio.net, please install the latest version. You don't need all the bells and whistles. This is a very heavy install. It takes up a lot of space. I strongly suggest just Visual Studio Code, and that'll be fine for us. Just time to get through each of them, setting up Visual Studio and GitHub. I seriously don't think it's going to be 3.5 hours to get through getting through that GitHub setup, but for some it'll take longer than others. So you've got the assignment to go set it up. When it's all said and done, give me a screenshot of Visual Studio, whatever iteration you install on your system. Screenshot of that installed, along with a link to your GitHub repo or repository. So you've got the reading. If I click this, it'll take me to here we are, C# object orientation, and all the goodies. Now, in this course, we're going to use some version of C#, whether it's C# in a .NET IDE or in a Visual Studio Code IDE. Either way, we're dealing with a language that was, the first version was created by Anders Hillsberg. He created Pascal and Delphi decades ago. And it's an iteration of C, object-oriented language. C was not object-oriented, but C++, C#, they are object-oriented languages. So there's some rules that we've got to play by, and in this chapter, it talks about the common language runtimes, how these things run on the OS, and the changes over time in the different iterations. I'm not going to dig deep into the history of C#. This is easy enough for you to go through and read. There's not a lot of syntax per se in this first chapter, stuff that you're going to have to memorize, if you will. Just read through it, become familiar. Just know that things have changed from one to the other. Now, we've got, depending on what kind of data type we're dealing with, the syntax will change. This tells you the different things that have come into play, and over time, this language has changed. All right. just within the last 2 years, it's gone from C# 11 to C# 12. So we're using the latest iteration of C#, both via text as well as via the software install. Now, I had mentioned in the welcome video, make sure that you install the latest version. If you're using .NET, use the latest version of it. And the reason I say that is that between the version about 3-4 years ago and now, it might have been 5 years ago and now, the solution file was moved in the hierarchy within the folder structure. So if I used an older version to open up your newer version, it wouldn't know where to look for the solution file, because it would say, I looked and your solution file wasn't there. Same thing, vice versa. So I'm using the latest version, and I need you to use the latest version as well. All right. So just for this, just go through these step by step, looking at the little ins and outs of C# and what's changed over time. We'll have in this module, I've got a little quiz about the history of C#, so you can always go back and see what's what within the reading to help you out in there. There's a few questions about the IDE Visual Studio. Right. Take your time. It's open book, open notes, but if I recall, you've got a time limit on it. Let's see. No time limit. So you don't have a time limit, and you can take it twice. Okay? It'll keep the highest score. As I noted in the welcome video, Module 1 reflection. There's a reflection for every module. Let me know what worked, what didn't work. I need to know how you're doing so that I can help you get where you need to get to. If you're having problems with your team, let me know in there. Okay. And then when we get to, and I mentioned this in the welcome, when we get to this assignment, you'll go through, like I said, set up your GitHub account and create a repository associated with this course. So you'll just create a repo, 2360. You'll install Visual Studio. Okay. Document what you've done. Get a screenshot of your Visual Studio choice. Go edit that typo. And a link to your GitHub repo. It's as simple as that. Now, if I come back here, I've got course resources for Module 1. You'll see when we get to Module 2, and I'll talk about it in the Module 2 video as well, I've got a GitHub repo for this course. Each module has a GitHub repo. So you can go in and you can see the files that I've shared out. So you can literally take this file, download it, pop it into your Visual Code, and run it in there. Okay. So we've got a variety of things that we're going to be able to use. This is the same thing that you're going to create as your task in Module 1. Now, like I said, get familiar with the other folks that are in the course. All right. As we go through this, going through it as a group, and This first discussion that you have right here is where you can get familiar with people that you're going to be interacting with through the rest of the course, or working with on your group or your team through the rest of the course. I leave this pretty wide open on the topics that you talk about. This discussion and the other discussions are designed to help you and everybody else understand, navigate, and be successful in this course, learning C#. You find something that could help other people, bring it to the table in here. Somebody's having a problem with something, jump in and see what you can do to help them out. It may be something you've already addressed. And hey, I know exactly how to get through that. Okay? These discussions are for you. This is not some place for me to micromanage you or say, oh, you didn't spell that right, or that's not MLA. I do expect that you've got a main post and you at least reply to 2 other people. I'm not looking at the length of them, but just go in and say, yeah, good job, I like that. That's not substantive. Okay. If you got any confusion on what you need to do in here, just reach out to me. Okay. The dates will be up here at the top, and with that said, I think we've got everything covered here, and I'll see you in the next module.